Are you a detective or a pervert? Or a bit of both? That's the question. It can be asked of Alfred Hitchcock and his children, Brian De Palma, David Lynch, and you, film freaks. Are you a detective, a pervert, or just a cinephile?
I don't know if there's too many films that really grab a hold of what I find this a very difficult film to watch. Blue Velvet, David Lynch's 1986, what is considered one of his great masterworks, one of his great films in his filmography, and one of the more important films of the 1980s. I find this to be both a difficult film, a moving film, daring, but also amateurish in certain respects. Some of that being the acting, some of that being some elements of the framing, but cinematography framing. But I think it's an incredibly powerful film because it's the beginning of a great career, and it's the beginning of themes, ideas, and stories that would grow and would become more both surreal and dangerous in further works like Wild at Heart, Lost Highway, and the film that I think is Lynch's true masterpiece, Mulholland Drive. I watching this again after having not seen it for probably about 3 or 4 years, I was really amazed at how with how good it is, while at the same time finding these little flaws in it, because I don't know if some of the performance there's no laughable performances, but there are moments where it's like there's a couple of lines where it's like, how could Kyle MacLachlan have delivered that line and not have sounded ridiculous? Why are there people like Frank in this world? I can't help but just kind of find it humorous. That being said, can you watch this movie as its own thing, or do you find yourself like where I find myself, as a precursor and as a build-up to Lost Highway, Wild at Heart, and Mulholland Drive? What's your opinion on that? Am I being too prejudiced there?
No, I think you're just seeing the full scope. You know what I mean? Like I do think that you can see this and see, okay, this opens the road for David Lynch. At the same time, like this past viewing, and I've seen this film multiple times, and I'm like, fuck, is this my favorite David Lynch movie? Is this it? Is this the one? It's kind of like going back to Hitchcock. Like, is it Rear Window? Is it Vertigo?
Mm-hmm.
You can say, someone can say, Vertigo's a better film than Rear Window because of XYZ reason, right?
Yeah.
But then the response is like, sure, fine, but Rear Window is my favorite, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and I think for a while it was like, Lost Highway is my favorite David Lynch film. But just watching it, I'm just kind of like, is this one of my top 10? Like, is this in my fucking top 10?
Yeah.
And I think it is. And
Wait a minute, Blue Velvet. Do you think Blue Velvet's in your top 10?
Velvet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And the reason I say I think it is because I like his other shit so much that I'm like, it's like not wanting to pick a favorite fucking kid or pet or whatever. And I think it can be so-called difficult to watch, but at the same time, I think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful, and even in the stylistic choices of kind of like creating that dual world of making the world of the daytime, the above ground world, making it seem cartoonish, making the dialogue cheesy as fuck, making it feel very mid-century, kind of like, come on, like you're putting me on here. And then David Lynch is like, well, yeah, I'm putting you on. He's putting you on in the same way that he's like, well, when you listen to me, I talk like a Midwestern guy with a tie that seems kind of bland. But now check out this movie. Check out this painting that I did. And then you're going like, well, there's more than meets the eye here. Or there's more than meets the ear here.
Nice. I don't want it to be believed that I don't want to give the wrong impression that I don't appreciate this film or I don't like this film. In fact, since becoming a David Lynch fan, and I've gone whole hog with the whole David Lynch.
Which is
really
great to see.
But I mean but it's a matter also of maturing tastes and coming to terms with what cinema has to offer. I think David Lynch is one of the few purely poetic cinematic artists where it's the films that he makes are not bound by the realities of this world. He's willing to go to the dark underbelly and show things that exist, but that we don't want to know that exist. We don't want to know that. We don't want to know that a Frank Booth exists out there. We don't want to know that Isabella Rosellini's character is that there are women being victimized in such a manner, and there's this young, naive kid who's fascinated by the danger and the wonder of this underbelly of his Leave It to Beaver 50s styled community, and I find that fascinating. There's a people complain about the darkness of this film and they complain about the violence of this film, but when you look at it, I don't remember there being a lot of violence. I remember there being a dark atmosphere that takes your mind into more dangerous and more frightening places. The violence isn't really on the screen. There's a couple of moments where Isabella Rosellini is slapped around, but if you look at the scene, Lynch cuts away. There's a moment where Dennis Hopper rapes Isabella Rosellini on the floor of her apartment, and he punches her.
Is that what you consider that?
A rape?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's absolutely a rape. I think without a question, it's her submitting to a rape. If you want to be a little bit more technical about it, because of the situation of, I mean, it's Yojimbo. It's a woman whose child has been taken from her, and she's allowing a level of abuse to be dispensed on her in order to maintain the safety of her child and possibly of her husband. It's weird because Lynch he doesn't show you the child. He doesn't show you the husband until the very end. And there are moments when there's a lot of moments in this film where you're wondering what the hell exactly is happening. And this film is not the exploration of dreams in the way that Lost Highway or especially Mulholland Drive or Inland Empire are. This is a film that is more heavily grounded in the reality of that world. I don't remember there being too much of there's a moment where Kyle MacLachlan's character comes out of, he wakes up the next morning and there is the sense that what happened before, he was reliving it in a dream that morning. But there's no doubt that what has occurred, what has been depicted on screen, has actually happened. That's a stark difference from Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire, when you don't know what the fuck is going on. But it's so skillfully crafted that you're along for the ride and you're willing to just submit yourself to whatever fancies David Lynch's storytelling. This moment here, you're witnessing all of this violence and depravity through Kyle MacLachlan's character. If you sit back and watch the film again, you don't see the actual beating as pronounced. I think a lot of it happens in your head because
it's a threat of violence.
There is a threat of violence, but there's also the threat of violence. In some cases, there is definitely the threat of violence, but there's also the depiction of violence off screen, seen through his reactions. The MPAA forced certain cuts on this film, and one of them was a visible beating, and a visible beating of Frank Booth on Isabella Rosellini's character, and Lynch chose to cut to Kyle MacLachlan watching from the closet. And Lynch says, which I agree with, doing so made it much more violent.
Yeah.
The
threat, there's more of a threat of being seen and being caught. Than of getting your ass kicked or getting killed. It's like there's constantly this back and forth of don't look at me. What the fuck are you looking at? Don't fucking look at me. And it's that goes back to the Hitchcock, to the voyeuristic, to the play on like voyeurism, exhibitionism, seeing and being seen, and that's how these directors, and I keep talking about the De Palma connection where he fucking puts you in there. He's like, you're here, we're all here wearing trench coats in the theater. And as they did in the porn theaters of old, right? We're here for not supposedly prurient purposes, but because like it's human nature to be like, guess what fucking happened? Guess what happened? Whoa! What happened? Tell me. Guess how many fires are burning in LA right now? How many fires are burning? Guess how many acres? Guess how many miles? Guess how many people died? Check it out. Like, this is who we are. And sometimes the more clear, it's like we want it to be more clear, but sometimes the more like crazy, it's kind of like, oh shit, like, well, maybe this, and you start filling in the blanks, and it's a detective story, but it's also a pervert story because we are detectives and perverts.
I think it's really interesting, and I'm glad that you brought up both Hitchcock, which this film is deeply in debt to, but also Brian De Palma, which I don't know if the influence is there so much as the overall cinematic influence is there. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I see Lynch as a disciple of De Palma, but I definitely feel that De Palma's hand, his fingerprints are all over cinema, with, especially with Dress to Kill, Blowout, and
For sure.
yeah, I mean, you could feel that on this. The difference, though, is that
Even stair scenes.
yeah, there's that. But give me your opinion on this, because, and I don't say this to. This is not a judgmental comment. This is a comment that I think is a little bit more in keeping with what the directors bring to it. I feel through through what you see with both Hitchcock and Vertigo, Rear Window, Psycho definitely, and De Palma with Blowout, Dress to Kill, and maybe Obsession. There's a certain delight that Hitchcock and De Palma effect to their images. I think they're far more perverted as filmmakers. Whereas David Lynch, I don't see him that way. However, it seems to me that David Lynch's images are more perverted, but I don't see him as a more pervert. I don't see David Lynch taking as much delight in depicting this world in the same way that Hitchcock. I guess the point I think I'm trying to say is there's a level of perversion that is sadistic in Vertigo, in Rear Window, in Blowout, and Dress to Kill that I don't see with Lynch. I think Lynch is more troubled. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
It does. Yeah. I see what you're saying. I don't know that I don't know if I'm ready to put like those kind of like tags on those directors. I will say that I think that Hitchcock and De Palma are, especially like in the context of their previous work or their contemporary work, whatever it is, with De Palma or previous with Hitchcock to Blue Velvet, like in the context of Blue Velvet, I think that you could say that Hitchcock and De Palma are doing things that are more from a psychological place.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Lynch is doing things from a more mythological type of place, where it's almost like his so-called being like a pervert or a voyeur, whatever is this is like his process. The Jeffrey character, the Kyle MacLachlan character, it's his kind of coming of age into realizing like that. In the same way, like you could take it to the macro of like the nation, supposedly, like if you have your mid-century fucking America, obviously there are things that are going on in the background that are there. There's the Cold War, all this shit, but it's pushed into the closet. It's pushed outside. It's pushed underground. Everything is nice and neat with the white picket fence, and the sun is shining, and the fire trucks are passing, and the fireman is waving, and the Dalmatians there, and all of that. It's Americana. It's your classic Leave It to Beaver, like you said. It's Father Knows Best. It's all of this shit. But then there comes a point where the youth are like, wait a minute, like, we're tired of pretending that this is this way. We're now going to do things our way. We're going to go outside. We're going to see what's going on. That's what he's doing. It's his moment as which is itself, you could say it is psychological because it's the development of a person, but done through these generalized kind of like symbols done through this Jeffrey character that exists in this like liminal state. He's in between. He himself is like in an in between world. He can go back and forth between these two like realms. He goes between, it's like wakefulness and sleep. It's, on the one hand, he wakes up in his bed and everything's white, and he's like, oh shit, what the fuck just happened? And then we also see him waking up all fucking beat up. It's those extremes. This movie is filled with those, the duality of the world. Wakefulness and sleep, light and darkness, day and night, the neighborhood, the nightclub, Laura Dern, Isabella Rosellini. Each one of those women represents, it's not a stereotype, it's more of a symbol. Laura Dern's dialogue, Laura Dern's behavior, her the way she's directed in the film is very, very, you can say it's cheesy, you can say that it's not realistic, you can say all of these things, but if you kind of put it in the context of like, what does that character symbolize? David Lynch is drawing from all these different things. Puppy love versus fetish shit. You know what I mean? Like, hit me. She's holding a knife. Isabella Rosellini's holding a knife to him. She's like, take off your clothes. She's starting to repeat the words that Frank tells her. Don't look at me, I'll kill you. It's like she's going back and forth between being this like victim herself and also this femme fatale kind of character. The detective and the pervert. Again, Laura Dern is like, what is this? What's in the open? What's in the closet? The skeletons, right? Literally, he goes in and out of the closet. This is his hero's journey. He's the one who finds the ear. Wait a minute. There's something rotten in Denmark, basically, right? He gets the key. He's in the belly of the whale. He meets the goddess. He meets the woman as temptress. He encounters the dark male figure that he has to fight. So it's mixing this kind of like hero's journey, mythological kind of thing. He's like this knight in shining armor that has to lose his innocence in order to counter the darkness in the world. And in that sense, not only is it like mythological, but it's also fucking neo-noir because he's neither detective nor criminal, or he's neither cop nor criminal, I should say, but he's still playing the detective. He gets drawn in over his head, sucked in by this like woman who's trouble. She's a woman in trouble. He's got the good girl, but there's also the bad girl.
The Madonna whore, but Madonna whore is usually within one character. But no, I mean, it's obvious that Lynch is aware of the tropes, and he's aware of what drives, these noir narratives. I think the difference is that Lynch is willing to take it to darker psychological places and troubling worlds. I think the thing that I enjoy the most about David Lynch's films, with the exception of The Straight Story, and Straight Story is a film that I love. The point that I'm making is that he creates worlds where the performances in his films could only exist in the worlds that he creates. They would be laughable in other films. There's a certain level of extremes. That's why some people. This might be Dennis Hopper's greatest performance on film. I think either this or Apocalypse. I'm not really sure. I think this is an exceptional piece of acting on his part, which would be way too over the top in definitely a Spielberg movie or a Scorsese film or damn near anybody. I don't know of another film. I don't know of another filmmaker where you could give this type of performance without it seeming laughable. And there's nothing laughable about. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we laugh about later. when you can distance yourself from the viewing, and we can walk into a room and scream, "I'll fuck everything that moves. I'll fuck anything that
Yeah.
moves." I mean, you're that's clearly an uncomfortable reaction to something that is. That's a comical reaction to something that is uncomfortable. I guess that's the best way that I wanted to put that. But like it's it's an incredible performance. Rossellini is so beaten up, and I don't find her very glamorous in this film. I find her very pained, and she's exactly what she needs to be in this film. And it was interesting that she hadn't really acted before this. She was a model. She was the daughter of the great Roberto Rossellini, the Italian director, and Ingrid Bergman, the great Ingrid Bergman. You watch her in this film, and she's pained. She's in distress. But I don't ever view her as a weak character. I see her as a woman who is struggling to get through whatever the fuck it is that her husband, because that's the way I view it, whatever the fuck it is that her husband has got her into. And now she's that victim, and she's trying to save her son. I think it's a really, I think it's a moving performance. I think she was, I don't know that I've ever seen her better in anything else. And she's been good in other things, but there's a level of obvious emotional nakedness and vulnerability that I don't know if too many seasoned actresses would have been willing to take on this type of a part. It's a little bit too raw. It's a little bit too naked. It's,
Yeah.
I think it's, she exudes vulnerability, and it's all the performances, whether it be Kyle MacLachlan as this naive over his head college student, Laura Dern is the virginal high school student, even Hopper's ridiculous gang. I think it all comes together in this
Brad
in this Brad Dourif and Jack Nance, and I don't know who the other guy was, but you watch it, and then you have this moment where Lynch goes completely overboard.
Oh, with Dean Stockwell?
And Dean Stockwell, which is an obviously flamboyant, I would guess, gay character. But when you watch him go into In Dreams,
Roy Orbison.
Roy Orbison, yeah, it's amazing. That is an amazing. That's one of the greatest moments in all of cinema. And to have him sing into that light as a microphone, and have it light him in that way, I don't think you could have captured that with him singing into any other thing. And the story that I heard on the Criterion Blu-ray of this, that one of the documentaries, is that the prop that Lynch just said, find something that my guy can sing into. And the prop guy was searching all over, and he couldn't find anything. And he found that, and he was, well, it looks kind of like an old-fashioned microphone, but the way it lights up his face in that demonic and troubled manner, it's so incredibly powerful. And that's a point where you reach in the film, and you reach this point in the film where you're all in, and you realize there's nowhere this film can go that I'm not going to go with it. And that's the magic of David Lynch. I think that's really the power and the wealth of his talent, is that he makes you as a viewer willing to enter this world without reservation, without at any points. Because if you really look at these films that he makes, the performances are so fucking over the top. In some ways, laughable. Nicolas Cage in Wild at Heart, Willem Dafoe in Wild at Heart. You know, I mean, it's so Robert. Who's the wife murderer? Robert Blake. Robert Blake in Lost Highway.
Yeah.
All of this shit is on the surface and concept. Get the fuck out of here. That will never work. And it works beautifully in a David Lynch film. He has the poet's eye of bringing the unnatural and making it. He has some kind of power of making dreams into reality. And that's the thing that draws you into his films. And I've talked about this in the past of not being able to, because I saw Blue Velvet when I was in high school, and I turned it off. I couldn't watch it. It was. How
far did you get?
I think
just
I got
right after the tits came out. Then you were like, "All right, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm finished. I'm done."
I'll just watch this part.
No, you know what? I don't even find her attractive in this film. There's something too pain. There is nothing titillating or exciting about this.
It's not,
you know what I mean?
It's not so-called hot. You know what I mean?
It's not at all.
There are moments where there's great beauty.
Yes.
Especially like as the nightclub singer, it's like, but it's not something that you're like, how do I say it? You're not like, you're not running your eyes up and down Isabella Rosellini. No. You're taking in the overall vibe. You're sitting in that nightclub and there's just kind of like, she's adding to the whole element of the thing where it's just kind of like, it's the music, it's the lighting, it's the drink, it's everything, and it's what it represents.
Yeah.
There are certain shots of her face, where it's just like, this is just a beautiful fucking shot.
Yeah.
And again, it's what she represents. It's not about, in that sense, her or what she looks like, or it's just the overall, that artist's touch, and the dreamlike quality where, you know, in a dream, it's weird because like things aren't explicit at all, but you have a sense of like, you might say, well, there was this dog and it was purple, and it was me. and how do you know that it was you? And well, I just know that it was me. And then all of a sudden I wasn't the dog anymore. I was in the popcorn bucket. But somehow you just know.
Yeah.
And obviously when you're in living this dream, watching a David Lynch dream, you're having to piece it together like that detective, where you're kind of like, I mean, you don't know what the fuck's happening because you're not in that dream. You're outside the dream looking in. And you're gathering and you're saying like, oh shit, so the blonde is also the brunette, which is like every David Lynch film practically. And then you're going like, oh, I had that dream in Vertigo last time because that's a different dream, you know, and this, she's her and this is this. And oh shit, the son is the mom. Oh fuck, right? I saw Psycho, fucking spoiler alert. It's David Lynch is able to get away with more stuff because he's operating on a world that isn't literal. He's not bound and doesn't allow himself to be bound by these conventions, but there is a reality that he creates. When the yellow man is there shot,
I love that,
but he's just standing. And then a sound goes off and he knocks something over because it's kind of like he's startled, but he stays in that fucking like that frozen, that like stupor.
That Tin Man moment where he's got the bullet in his head, which has basically destroyed whatever automotive functions that he was once capable of, and now he's aware, but he's not whatever the fuck he needs to be. I think I had to see it a couple of times before there were moments where I was like, what the fuck is that?
It's great because it gives it it gives it a reality. Because you're saying like that doesn't seem real, or that seems counter to everything that one would think is real, but because of that, it's almost like it's the exception that like it's like fuck, that is real, because it's like it's so fucking weird that like you can't make it up. It's just too weird, and the whole David Lynch's practically his whole career is that, where you're looking at it and there comes a point where you just accept it and you're just like, yeah, this is the shit. And I've liked David Lynch since I think Lost Highway was probably the first thing I saw. No, I think Elephant Man I had seen earlier, but like the Lynchian of the Lynch films that where you're like, oh, this is this guy.
Well, the three films, I mean, we got to be honest about this. I mean, at least I think there are three films that exist outside of the normal David Lynch filmography, the psychological and dreamlike world that he creates. And those films are Dune, The Elephant Man, and The Straight Story. Everything else exists within that world that knows no limits outside of what David Lynch is willing to limit, of whatever he creates. And this is the thing. It's like, I don't feel it would be real easy to dismiss what we're saying here, because what we're saying sounds like, well, he can do whatever the fuck he wants and you guys are just going to go with it. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a degree, I think there's a point that Lynch respects his story enough to at least contain it within the parameters of what he has created.
Right. He is loyal to the reality, to that reality.
Yeah.
And now still that there's a lot of leeway, because it's kind of like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Well, you're dealing in surrealism. You're dealing in like, yes, can you open a book in those types of worlds? Can you open a book and a fucking melted clock falls out and you're like, oh, Dali? Like, yes, you can do that. Because you're dealing with, you're getting to something, an overall, a deeper message than just, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy tries to get girl back. There's more going on here than that. And if people don't want to deal with that type of shit, then they don't have to. They can stay out. If they also don't want to deal with the shit that's a little bit darker, then they can stay in that daytime white picket fence world and pretend that fucking this other shit doesn't exist. But to a certain extent, then they themselves never grow up. They're limited to that piece of perception that they have. And maybe if they want to become paternalistic about it, then they, like Roger Ebert, can say, well, I need to save Isabella Rosellini from David Lynch, because David Lynch is the Frank Booth of her. And I can be the little Jeffrey hiding in my little cinema closet and not understand this film,
But you know what? He could be right in his discussion of abuse.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah. Well, there's that. It doesn't mean that the image on screen is not valid or it doesn't resonate in the story, at least the narrative that is being told. I don't know that he is completely innocent in what he puts her through in this movie, but I know that sometimes you have to go to a certain place as an artist in order to tell the story. And I'm talking both on his and Isabella Rossellini's part, in the same way that you could say Kubrick was abusive towards Shelley Duvall. But it is an incredible performance, and Duvall gave great performances after it for years before she had her mental breakdown. Who's to say
sure,
that,
and that just because of the, I mean, like, that's like correlation does not equal causation. Like, that doesn't mean that fucking what Kubrick did had anything to do with what happened to her after. Like, it could be, but it could not. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's like I do see, like, the stories that I've heard, he was abusive. There's no doubt about that. But I also think that, you know how they talk about chefs, and the abuse that they dispense, or, you know, like the film Whiplash with J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller. I mean, there is a level of abuse in order to achieve greatness and create something. Sometimes you have to walk through the fire in order to come out on the other end a better artist. And I think there's a part of me that says if you're not willing to withstand a certain level of abuse, maybe you shouldn't be there, because the abuse really tests your understanding of yourself. There are certain things that you can't fake. You can imagine it to the best of your ability, but sometimes there is a level of fear and exhaustion that needs to be put on a person in order to get the performance.
well, I mean,
I don't know.
I agree with you. I just think that it's like, well, it's one thing that to be challenged, and it's another thing to be abused. To be challenged is like, well, I'm going to push all of us, including myself, to reach this level, knowing that there is a possibility that we can reach that level. And even if we don't reach that level, we're going to get damn close, and that will be good enough. But if we can, we're going to reach the level that we're starting off to get. We're going to reach for the fucking stars. We're going to shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be a little bit, there's going to be some discomfort and some pain. But it's going to be worth it. Now, do it again. There's that. And there's like, shut the fuck up and fucking do it, bitch.
Yeah.
Knowing that this means nothing. We're not trying to reach anything. I've already gotten the take that I'm going to probably use, but I just want to fucking get off on fucking with you. So do it again. Shut the fuck up. Don't look at me like Frank Booth says. Do it again. You're fucking stupid. Is that all you can do? You're fucking worthless. Do it again. There's a difference there.
Yeah, there is. I don't know. I don't know where I don't know sometimes where the artist and the sadist end, and where one ends, one begins. Picasso, Beethoven, Preminger. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I'm not trying to whitewash these.
No, we're not. No, absolutely not. But also, it's like we've talked a little bit about Maria Schneider, Marlon Brando, and Bernardo Bertolucci. That's an incredible film. It's an incredible performance, and it's an incredible scene. But when you watch it years later and you understand, I can't justify the action, but the art exists.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's right. I'm not saying that it should have happened. I'm saying it shouldn't have. It should not have happened. He victimized that woman. She deserved better. But the art exists. I would rather that it didn't exist and that woman she would not have had to experience something like that. But it exists.
Yeah. Look at that.
It's problematic.
Look at fucking Ellen Burstyn didn't have to fucking get her back hurt in order to fucking pull off a performance in The Exorcist.
No.
Like that was a use of trickery and yes, abuse.
Yeah.
Now William Friedkin would be like, fuck you, I'm gonna get the fucking shot.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. Or a Herzog is gonna say like,
I don't care how many people we have to kill. We're getting this fucking boat over this mountain.
He would say, hey, I also hurt my back.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to prove that you could live after hurting your back. So I did it first.
Yeah.
So I don't accept this. These people are fucking not, part of the reason why a lot of these kind of people are, successful, and not all of them. And this is not, and I don't necessarily believe in I want to believe in a meritocracy, but again, I'm not fucking living in the white picket fence world. But some of these people, and this reminds you of Nightcrawler, that film, because Jeffrey is a version of Nightcrawler. Some of these people are so fucking extreme that it's by the sheer force of their fucking obsessiveness, their obsessions, their deceptions, the lengths that they will go to. That's why they're successful. Some, a lot of them know it because they're fucking rich or because of whatever.
Hold on a minute.
Who they know.
I'm losing you a little bit. Oh, yeah. So it's, the who you knows and, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's that's all that. But the David Lynches of the world and some of these other people, the only reason why they're able to exist, I mean, luck is huge. But it's because enough people, for whatever reasons, got on board with their fucking vision, with their shit. David Lynch is not a mass, pop cultural. He's known in pop culture, but he's not
he's not Spielberg. He's not a popular director.
He's not for the masses. He's underground. Still, and no matter how successful, he is still an art house director.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask Isabella Rosellini, and she's like, I did this. I was an adult, and I did this role. So there's a level of paternalism on the part of the Eberts of the world who feel that and then this is kind of this is when you get into the so-called cancel culture and all that shit, where it's kind of people start making blanket statements about this or that, or they feel like they need to be the defenders and the defenders of and the speakers for these people who apparently they cannot stand up for themselves, or speak for themselves, or make their own decisions. So these people on the sidelines can step in and say, well, I feel that this is just a version of exploitation and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times, you do also need those voices because you have to have a counter to the systems. You need a counter to fucking Bill Cosby. You need somebody rattling those bones to say, hey, the, again, there's something rotten in Denmark here, because you can't let all these power structures just exist without a counter. But it's kind of like, okay, well, what about the people that you're speaking for? What do they say? What do they say about this?
Well, there is that. And I'm not a defender of Roger Ebert's view of this film. I think he's wrong. But I don't think it's necessarily he doesn't see it. I think it just doesn't resonate with him in the way it does with us. There is the argument that to be made that she takes an excessive amount of abuse, and I think his argument was that there's not a payoff for her in the sense of, I don't remember. I'd have to remember the exact quote that he said about this film. And he was wrong a lot of times. He was wrong a lot of fucking times. But I always felt that he came to his reviews with a certain level of even-handedness and a true appreciation for what was on the screen. Where is it? I know I have this somewhere. His okay, what he said was Ebert praised Rosellini's performance as convincing and courageous, but criticized how she was depicted in the film. She was degraded, slapped around, humiliated, and undressed in front of the camera. And when you ask an actress to endure those experiences, you should keep your side of the bargain. Oh, by putting her in an important film. So his problem was with the film as a whole, which I can understand. I can respect that, to not like the film. The film didn't resonate with him.
Okay.
And he would watch. He came to appreciate Lynch's work over the years, but then reevaluated the film 20 years later and still stood by that. Now, I've heard him go back on certain reviews, and I've heard him double down on certain reviews. He doubled down on this. It's simply a film that he didn't appreciate.
What I didn't catch the part about the director having to hold up his end of the bargain.
Okay,
what is
so
that?
so if you're going to abuse the fuck out of a performer, especially a woman, and I'll get into that description in a minute. If you're going to abuse
assuming
somebody,
that it's that, huh?
Okay, yeah,
Because I would say that she's
complicit in it. She had the choice to make. Yeah, of course. Sorry.
She's not. First of all, I don't think it's complicit because I don't think she did anything wrong. But
okay, you're right.
Second of all, it's she's portraying abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Portraying abuse does not mean being abused.
You're right.
Okay, so then okay, go on.
His argument was that if you're gonna abuse an actress in the way that he saw that she was abused in this film, which I don't agree with, but I agree with you. She was portraying abuse. I think the
character is abused in this film.
The character is, yeah. You owe it to her to put her in an important film. He didn't recognize Blue Velvet as the important film that it is. He didn't view it as the artistic. He did not see the artistic value in this film that you and I both, that leaps out at both of us. Now, that could be the limitations of his viewing. That could be the excessiveness of our viewing. We don't know. And this is the thing, where it's like, I don't dismiss somebody's view of art.
Mm-hmm.
If the argument is well thought out and they come to it with an open-minded understanding of what they're viewing, it's simply a matter of it not resonating with him. It does with me. I see something incredible in this film, even though, as I said at the beginning of this episode, some of it seems amateurish to me now. But it's a movement towards the later films that would, in some ways, become even grander in their embracing of the subconscious and the dreamlike quality. But I think this is an incredible film. I think it's an incredible early film from somebody who would prove themselves to be a great filmmaker. And at this point, I've seen, with the exception of the short films, I've seen damn near everything that he's made, because I just finished Twin Peaks, the entire series, plus the reboot from 4 or 5 years ago. And I gotta say, he's an incredible artist. I can't take anything away from David Lynch. I'm a great admirer of him, but it did take time to get to that place. With something like this, though, well, this goes back to the violence against women episode that we've been promising for the last decade.
Which we've done it in basically in parts.
We've done little pieces here and there, and it's with Revenge, with Irreversible, with a handful of other films, and to a degree the pornography episodes that we did. I think part of what his argument was a reactionary viewing of a constant depiction of violence against women. So it's very easy, depending on the baggage that you carry into a film, to dismiss it altogether. I think it'd be very easy for somebody to watch Irreversible and just walk out of that fucking movie disgusted. And I wouldn't fault them. I wouldn't blame them. But there is a part of me that would. That kind of would. You would?
I think so. I think part of me is like, why are you clutching your pearls? I understand if something offends you. I understand if something, and I say turn you off, it doesn't mean because I wanted to turn you on, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
Rubs you the wrong way. I get that, but I feel like a lot of times when you get a strong reaction against certain things like this, certain pieces of art, certain pieces of pop culture, it comes from this place of like this like moral panic type of thing. And that makes me view that person very suspiciously.
Yeah.
And I start to say, what are you not facing that
yeah,
that you're fucking flipping the fuck out on this level over?
Well, you're getting
kind of like,
yeah.
And we're not talking about these extreme fucking we're not talking about snuff films and homemade fucking videos of all this fucked up shit happening. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the movies.
Yeah.
Or we're talking about an album or a book where it's like, well, we need to fucking ban this book or burn this book or burn this record. And it's kind of like, motherfucker, you're real quick to like burn shit. And I view that I'm like, what are you hiding? What's in there?
Well, what you're, okay, so you're going extreme here. because that's not
So
what
are
he
they.
was saying. No, what he's saying is it's he didn't see the artistry in it, and he saw it as being gratuitous. That doesn't
Yeah, I mean,
mean
like, it's
ban
like
it.
if only it were beyond the Valley of the Dolls. If only.
That's a snide little remark, but what I'm trying to say is,
Flip it
um,
back.
yeah. Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, I mean, like if you take Irreversible, Irreversible is one of the probably the worst rape scenes that I've ever seen on film.
Yeah.
But it's within the context of a great work of art. Now, if you watch my go to Death Wish 2 or I Spit on
Right.
Your Grave, I go to it a lot, you know, but sometimes it's because that proves your point. There is a difference between something that is salacious and gratuitous, and it's violence for violence sake, and you get the impression that the filmmaker is getting off on a perversion of seeing somebody violated and the violence against them. I don't see that with David Lynch. I don't know if that's what Roger Ebert was talking about. I don't see that. I see him depicting an ugly world where people are victimized. And part of what you see on that screen that makes it so disturbing is the contrast between the white picket fence, this underbelly, and this extreme performance by by Dennis Hopper.
It's upper, yeah.
And it's a brilliant performance, and it's a performance. I think it's one of
Yeah,
the
Baby Wants
three
to Fuck.
What's that?
I said Baby Wants to Fuck.
Baby Wants to Fuck. It's one of the three performances that he gave after coming almost immediately out of rehab. It was Blue Velvet, it was Hoosiers, and I think it was one other film. Oh, The River's Edge. That's right.
Oh, it was Edge,
All losers, all addicts, all troubled men. With this probably being the most extreme of the three films. He's it's strange. He falls into this weird cartoonish character that you can't imagine existing, but you kind of know does. It's the contrast between him and De Niro's Max Cady. I don't see De Niro's Cady existing at all. I see Mitchum's Cady,
Yeah. Hmm.
but with Booth is one of those guys that when you drive through a fucking bad neighborhood and you see a bar, you know there's a Booth in there. You know that guy,
Yeah.
and he's in in any town USA, there is a level of depravity that exists underneath it all, and it's feeding on the innocence, and I think that's what David Lynch is trying to portray. I think that's what he's going out of his way to create and give life to. I don't know that Roger Ebert saw that, and I don't know if any of the critics who saw this film and were critical of it could see that. Maybe they can't look past their own misgivings, their own personal beliefs of artistic possibilities, but I certainly do. So that's what I see. I see that I see a world an exaggerated world with elements that really and truly exist and are frightening.
Yeah.
It's troubling.
This is the lure of I mean, Jeffrey saw that too.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing something that's always hidden and trying to go after that mystery, that this is what people are into conspiracies, or or into like secret knowledge, or they're drawn to it. They want to get close to. It's like Terence McKenna talks about doubt, a level of skepticism, and in one of his, because his shit was like the psychedelic riffing that he would do at his talks, and he was talking about, he's like, it's good to have some doubt, because actually, he's like, look at doubting Thomas. In the story after Jesus is resurrected, Thomas is the one that has a level of doubt. And so Thomas is granted the opportunity to touch the wound. And he's the only one that got to do that because he had a level of doubt. So he got an extra piece of knowledge. He got an extra piece of confirmation. And so, I mean, we can go a number of different ways with that. On one level, it's like, well, those of us who are curious, who do want to see, we want to learn more about our motivations as human beings. We want to learn more about the gamut, the spectrum of the human condition, of human emotion. We want to look at all these things, and we're not going to turn away just because we see something unpleasant or challenging or scary or disturbing or upsetting or whatever. Like, in a way that it's kind of like some of these things prime us for the real world, or they help to kind of like alleviate not only the tensions of the possibilities of what can happen. It's like, well, fuck, at least we're not in a zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Even if it's just basically that, or it's like, I can, at its most simple, is like to take your mind off whatever, you're experiencing a breakup, or I don't know what the fuck, whatever is happening. But then at most, it's like we can kind of gain some kind of insight into our lives. Now, the danger about being like sometimes curious is like, well, where does that curiosity take you? To what corners does it take you? Especially if you're actually stepping into those worlds rather than just watching it from behind the screen. But there's also a danger, and this is where you do have to have some kind of skepticism, is like, not everything that you're absorbing is going to be real or true.
Yeah. Because
there are people who stand to gain from the lies or the webs or the stories that they're spinning. And then, you can get into fucking QAnon and Flat Earth and all this other shit. But, everyone has to navigate those fucking waters themselves. But Jeffrey quickly gets in over his head, and he's very lucky. That character is very lucky in the film that he just didn't get killed. But on some level, it's like, do I think that maybe, is it the Robert Ebert felt that, well, it was too easy, that everything was just brought to this conclusion, good wins in the end? I mean, that doesn't seem to be what he said, but I mean, like, I'm sure that argument can be made. Well, yeah, all this abuse, but then it was just so quickly, like, washed away.
Yeah.
By the removal of Frank Booth. But at the end of the day, and we all know that it's like, without seeing it, there is a fucking Blue Velvet Part 2, which is like, once the sun sets on that fucking Lumberton, you know what I mean? Like, and the radio guy says that the sound of the falling log or whatever it is, like, it's this time. It's not like all of that undercurrent of dark shit disappeared. Yeah. It's still there. it's still bubbling.
Well, that's the thing. The world that created Frank Booth continues to exist.
That's right.
And another Booth is being created. Another Booth is...
Who knows if Jeffrey is not Frank Booth? Jeffrey was, whether it's dream or reality, when Isabella Rossellini's character said, "Hit me," he hit her.
Yeah.
Jeffrey hit her. And Jeffrey got to play in both worlds. Because Jeffrey got to sleep with the good girl and the bad girl.
Yeah.
And in that world, I don't know that it's as simple as Isabella Rossellini's character being a victim. Like, I don't know that she's not just as much in love with fucking Frank Booth as she is with Jeffrey, or her husband Don, or whatever. You know that she loves her kid, but it's kind of like that character's all fucked up.
Yeah.
People
are complicated.
That's right.
And I think that's what Lynch, I think that's where Lynch lives. He's not black and white. He's not a Boy Scout. He's not, well, I think he might have been a Boy Scout, but, he's not Spielberg in that sense where everything is pat and we're going to have a happy ending. I like the fact that this is a troubled happy ending. Because when she gets back together with her kid, I don't feel, maybe it's me projecting, I don't feel as she sits there that she is 100%, or that you don't walk away from that kind of psychological damage and everything makes sense afterwards. There's a certain reality of life that comes upon a film, and you have to be able to recognize it and allow the real world, real life, your and my experiences with different people to inform how Blue Velvet 2 plays out.
I mean, yeah, the Robins represent love, but that shit's eating a bug.
And I think it's interesting that it's mechanical, that it's the worst robotic Robin I've ever seen on, and it's intentional. There's something to that. There's something lifeless about it that really makes sense within the context of the film that he's making. He could have very easily got a Robin and just sat it there. There are animal trainers that can make something like that happen. That shit was deliberate.
It's artificial. You know, it's like there's an artificiality back on the world. It's back to the dream. A candy-colored clown they call a Sandman tiptoes to my room every night just to sprinkle stardust and to whisper, "Go to sleep. Everything is all right."
It's magic.
It's magic.
What would you like to tell the fine people, Mr. Chavez?
Give us money.
Yeah.
At buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. That's buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. This episode is for Cornelius Burrows, one of our members. We're in 2025. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows, for all of your support over the years, and thank you, those of you who continue to listen and support. Bye-bye.
people should watch it. Again, I'm gonna watch. I'll go back to the first aspects of it. Anya Taylor-Joy was supposed to be the Lily Rose Depp character. She was originally cast, and
That would have been great.
Yeah, I know. And no offense to Lily Rose Depp, but I just think that Anya Taylor-Joy would have brought something different, and especially already having done The Witch, I think it's like, what would you do with that now having done The Witch? No,
Yeah.
like, do you do a continuity of that we don't know about, or do you counter it?
But that's the important thing that we don't know about.
Exactly.
There should be the mystery. I like the mystery of what informs it, and I like part of the magic of movies or what the baggage that you bring to it and how you make it personal to you, regardless of what's on the screen. It's these are human stories with human emotions, and you watch them you watch each film with an understanding of how people behave and how they would react. A lot of this doesn't embrace that idea. There's a lot of really good shit in this movie, but it's like pieces that don't come together to create. It's like a lot of, I don't know. It's like I can't think of a song right now with singers that I love coming together to do something that doesn't work. But that's the clearest thing that I can think. It's like, the song itself doesn't work. The movie itself just doesn't work, despite how much talent is going into making it. This is a good bad film, I guess is the best I could say. You know what I mean? It's a really good bad film. So that's the best I could say about it.
I'm not necessarily disappointed. I went into this episode describing how difficult it is to fucking, like, once you start in on this journey, you know that it's like very difficult to bring anything new to it.
Yeah.
Especially something like, like I said, I'm waiting for something that's going to really, like, kind of redefine the genre. This is, and that's okay that this is not that. And it's okay that this film is whatever it is. But know that this is what it is. And when you said it, people have to bring their own baggage to it. It's like, yeah, I want to get on that train. It's like you get on this train, or on the plane. You get on the plane, and you're trying to put your baggages in the overhead fucking thing, but there's no room. And the seats they oversold the fucking plane, so you can't even get on the plane because it's so full of other people's fucking baggage that you cannot get onto the ride. So it's like, give me some room to dream. There have to be gaps.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There have to be silences. It has to breathe, even if it's undead. And there has to be room to kind of like fit in to those spaces. It's just, in a sense, kind of like maximalist like that, where it's just really full of stuff, and it's weighed down by it. But
no, at the end,
I'm glad it was made.
I'm glad it was too. At the end of the day, you have to watch it yourself and make your own decision. If nothing else, I hope for those of you who are starting your cinematic journey, this is at the very least a jumping off point to going back to the Murnau film, to looking at Herzog. I don't think you'll be disappointed where it takes you. You just have to be willing to take that ride, and that's all movies are. So I'm glad it was made, just like you've said. I just wish it had been a little bit more challenging. I wish it would have challenged itself a little bit more. But that being that, what kind of a challenge can we extend to the listener at this point, Mr. Chavez?
The challenge of giving us your money that you probably don't have.
Yeah, these are hard times.
Buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. This episode is our first episode of 2025, which is going to be a horrific year.
You got to have some hope. Come on.
So I didn't say horrible. I said horrific.
Okay.
I don't know which is worse, but pretend this is not as bad. I want to extend thank yous to our members, Cornelius Burrows, Alan Lambert, and Stephen Palmer. I also want to extend thank yous to those who have donated in the past. Slim, Spitshine Tommy, someone, Ryan Parker, someone, Jorge Salcedo, Ben, someone, Tommy Tickle, Charles Mahoney, someone, Rob Bundy Style, Livernois, someone, Jeremiah, Frank, Jeremy Slagoth, Danny Esp, someone. Thank you all. If you can help us out, it doesn't have to be large sums. It can be, some people are doing $5 a month. Some are doing whenever they can. Doesn't matter. Even if it's like, hey, reach out to Rick. He's the man with the email.
I put it out there.
Listen, tell a friend. What is your email is what? Gondoramos@yahoo.com?
That's right.
Just stay connected. Stay listening. Stay watching. We're going down this dark road. We will continue on it with you, with us. Have a horrific year.
Bye-bye, all.